Before we get started, and anybody wants to say anything, I did cross-reference this. However, I didn't grab somebody else's cellular device that was in their name directly in order to check this. So whatever information was being fed to me on my phone for whatever psychological operation or science experiment, I just want to see exactly if what I stated also matches up to what everybody else plays out, right? I mean, think about it, right? So if I go on Google or I say a word and then somebody comes back and that word gets back to me, it's like playing the game telephone, right? You used to take two cups, put a string in the middle, be like, blah, blah, and talk. All right. So let's get into lesson 50. To understand is the greatest power of all. Let's get into it because most people will get triggered, which will get them to pull a trigger without understanding what's involved, right? It was once said when people say, oh, you should look up. And they say, why is the sky blue? It's a reflection of the ocean or the water or whatever the case may be. But that's weird. Is it not? So, where are we? This says, so I ordered this book. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but as I stated earlier in another video, this is the Ethiopian Bible, right? So ether, the shit to make your soul burn slow. ETH is also a currency, etc. Blah, 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 blah. Then you have the IO, ChatGPT, and then Plan. So let's get into this because there's a phone number that I keep seeing that has like a month and shit. And we got to stop some stuff, all right? It's getting a little out of control. So let's get into this. This is Enoch, right? Which I think is mentioned in a couple places. The Book of the Watchers. All right, so it says here, 16:4. Right? 4. Let's see here. 15:4 exactly. Women and men work much evil on earth. Say to them, therefore, you have no peace. Yes or yes? I mean, it's in here, so let's do a fact check because I don't know if there's going to be any modifications or anything like that, but it's there. So just for anybody. Now let's get into the next one. 23:4. It talks about the luminaries of heaven, right? The luminaries, the enlightened ones, right? The illuminaries, right? This course of fire which thou hast seen is the fire in which the West, which persecutes all the luminaries. But if somebody's in the West, then who's in the East? And where is that? Exactly, depending on how you're looking at it, right? Because if I told you this is my left hand, right, and you're looking at me, but my left hand can touch your left shoulder, is it my left hand or is it your left shoulder? I don't know. So let's continue because that was just a little brief thing that I wanted to point out there because it talks about the illuminaries as well as the elect living in their mansions and all this other stuff. And yeah, it gets a little crazy and intense. I encourage you guys to order this. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. You guys would really get different followers, let's say that. Right? If that's what you're looking for, followers, subscribers, etc., attention, whatever. Look at me, shiny object syndrome, right? So, let's move forward. 40, chapter 40, section 9. Chapter 40, section 9. Seen and whose words I have heard and written down, ? And he said to me, this is Enoch speaking, right, in his own writing, right? So when you read literature, it's in the author's interpretation or the author, or if you spell, how do I say this, color with a U, if you know what I'm saying, or you can spell it without it, right? The first is Michael the merciful and long-suffering, and the second, who is set over all diseases and all wounds of the children of men, is Raphael. And the third who is set over all the powers is Gabriel. And the fourth who is set over the repentance unto hope of those who inherit eternal life is named Famuel. It looks like funeral, but we'll see. Here, out just in case, because it's with a PH, and last time I checked, when you do translations, you also got to make it into people's language. And then you got to look up like the etymology or etymame or whatever it's called. So you guys will get there. All right. So that's that one. So what does that mean exactly? So first, so they're just describing characters, right? The people, personnel, right? Names, titles, whatever, right? Describing their roles, their occupation, whatever, right? Now, granted, because somebody has the first name, does it mean that? How many people have the same name? And then somebody said, what's in a name, right? And then in Paris in Love, or From Paris with Love, they said the name Rose, and the guy just shot this chick and was like, that was what we were looking for, etc. Like saying Ruby or whatever, right? And so it's kind of like it was programmed, right? So weird how that happens, but it can happen sometimes. Now let's get into 52, chapter 52:5. So chapter 52:5. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, here it is. So let me back up before people can take this out of context. Let's see here. Anointed that he may be, where is it? His dominion and several after those days. So I'll read you from the beginning, from 1. All right. And after those days, this is still Enoch, if I remember correctly. Let me double check. Yeah, it's Enoch, the Book of the Watchers. So chapter 52, for those of you who already have the book or don't, right? I feel like I'm teaching Harry Potter. Hold on. All right, so, and after those days, in that place where I had seen all the visions of that which is hidden, for I had been carried off in a whirlwind, and they had borne me towards the west, their mine eyes. They're mine eyes, right? So mine eyes. And so it's MINE. Like that's mine, etc., right? And so it says eyes. And then all saw the secret things of heaven that shall be a mountain of iron, and a mountain of copper, and a mountain of silver, and a mountain of gold, and a mountain of soft metal, and a mountain of lead. And I asked the angel who went with me, saying, what things are these which I have seen in secret? And he said unto me, all things which thou hast seen shall serve the dominion of his anointed, that he may be potent and mighty on earth. Now getting into number 5. So, and that angel of peace answered, saying unto me, wait a little, and there shall be revealed. Now, it doesn't say who the angel was. It just says an angel, right? It doesn't give specific titles, names, or whatever. Right? So, and that angel of peace answered, saying unto me, wait a little, and there shall be revealed unto thee all the secret things which surround the Lord of spirits. See, and this is what I'm talking about, because as I go on, there's going to be different spirits that you see, like an ABC store. You have different brands, right? And then it continues to go into other stuff, right? So it goes this. So it says, if going down, and these mountains thine eyes have seen, the mountains of iron, otherwise known as ore, right? And then, and what is it? The mountain of copper, and the mountain of silver, and the mountain of gold, and the mountain of soft metal, and the mountain of all lead. All these shall be in the presence of the elect one as wax. All right. So let's talk about this for a second because we got to get into some stuff, right? So if you ever seen the movie Boondock Saints, right? There's a section in there, right? However, what exactly happened in the second movie, right? In the second movie, there was like this Mexican guy on a ship while they were being smuggled across, so on and so forth, to come back because something happened and they had to look at stuff. And he's like, "Yo, you guys are really cool. I want to get in with you guys, yeah." And they were doing like a fight thing or whatever. And it was very interesting because as I watched that movie, I interpreted it a different way up until I played Diablo 4, and then I saw the Jaguar, right? Now, if you played Civilizations, or you seen, about Aztecs and stuff like that, Mayans, whatever, it was one of the characters that helped out one of the heroes, right? And guess what? In California, there's the California Gold Rush, right? Minerals, ores. I mean, you have Silicon Valley. How much tech is out there that has silver, iron, ores, all of it? Palo Alto, right? Or you got Teddy Roosevelt say you got to walk with a big stick. So Palo Alto, or a tall stick, etc. So, I mean, you got to think about it, right? Because it's just so fascinating. That's how my brain interprets things, right? Because you hear the media going back and forth, this side, that side, this side, this side, this side, that, and I'm just like, what is going? If you ever seen, what was it, Mary Poppins? It was one of them. Not like right around the time they did Chimney or whatever, and I think they were playing badminton or tennis, and it's like, or soccer, and they're going back and forth. And it was very interesting, right? It's kind of like the 5 or 6 silver balls that you do in physics class, right? And you pull one, you let go, and then it goes through and it hits the other one. Kind of like the game Telephone, right? So let's get back into this, right? So as wax before the fire, and like the water, right, which streams down from above, rain, right, water, upon those mountains, right? You have Palm Springs, you have other stuff, and they shall become powerless before his feet. And it shall come to pass in those days that none shall be saved, either by gold, silver, and none be able to escape. And there shall be no iron for war. That's like saying there's an ammunition shortage, or not having any bullets in your fucking pistol or rifle. And you need gunpowder to do that. And don't get me started on electricity, because I'll talk about Christmas. Bronze shall be of no service, and tin, because I don't know if you study science, but as they started mixing stuff together, eventually they got to steel and things like that, right? But you had to mix stuff together. There's going to be none of that, right? And what was the question? Because Albert Einstein was German. And they said, what's World War III going to be like? He said, I don't know, but World War IV is going to be fought with sticks and stones. I think a brick is a stone. I'm not sure. You might call it a rock, depending. We'll see. And all things shall be denied and destroyed from the surface of the earth, when the elect one shall appear before the face of the Lord of spirits. Now remember, there was an angel of peace, the Lord of spirits. Now as I move through, you're going to hear other things come forth, right? And it comes through with great privilege to state these things, right? Because a lot of people respect this, right? I mean, they may not respect the dollar bill, but they respect whatever is written on paper, right? They respect something digital like credit, right? Or Apple Pay, or whatever you use, Google Pay, GPay, whatever. You respect those numbers. So let's continue. 62, so chapter 62, section 4 of the book that I ordered. And now if Oracle lied, right? Because I remember in 300 and a couple other places, like the Oracle sold out Leonidas for gold and silver and all those things and told them a lie. I don't know if you remember the analogy, but I just read something in the book and that came from somewhere else, right? Think about it. So 62:4, where are we? 62:4. Then shall pain. Now, mind you, this is Old Testament. So if you play football, think overtime. If you think New Testament, you go, oh, TNT, right? Which is where they showed the librarians. Then shall pain come upon them as a woman in travail, right? And she has pain in bringing forth when her child centers the mouth of the womb, and she has pain in bringing forth, so on and so forth. And one portion of them shall look on the other, and they shall be terrified, and they shall be downcast, right? Count nuance or nonsense or whatever, right? I gotta pull it. I'll pull it up in a second. And the pain shall seize them, right? So women used to die in birth, right? That's why, certain things happen at a certain period, right? But with science and things, you could do that later on if you wanted to do that, right? Where is it here? They see that Son of Man is sitting on the throne of his glory, not the porcelain throne, but you understand what I'm saying. And the kings, they see that the Son of Man is sitting on his throne of glory, and the kings, where is it? And the mighty and all who possess the earth shall bless and glorify and extol him who rules over all, who was hidden from the beginning. And it says here the Most High, right? So they had a Lord before, but now they're saying the Most High, right? And then there was an angel, so there's a structure, right? There's a structure, but they're always relaying information, right? It's the most valuable form, right? Because without knowledge, how would you gain wisdom, right? But if you get too close, right, to a fire, your hair could catch fire. So you might want to back up when somebody says back up, right? You don't want to say, oh, this person put my hair on fire, because that's not true. They told you to back up. So let's talk about chapter 68, right? Because we're going to get into 69 in a second. Yeah. So chapter 68. We're going to go chapter 68, and this would be section 4, right? Actually, let's back up a little bit. It's probably best if I read the whole thing so you have understanding, right? Because this is what the title revolves around, right? Let me do a mic check. Okay. We're still good. So, section 1 of chapter 68, right? And after that, my grandfather Enoch gave me the teachings of all the secrets in the book, in the parables which had given to him. And he put them together for me in the words of the book of the parables. And on that day, Michael answered Raphael and said, the power of the Spirit transports and makes me to tremble because of the severity of the judgment of the secrets, the judgment of the angels who can endure, right? Severe judgment which has been executed, and before which they melt away, ? So weird, right? Michael's concerned and he's talking to Raphael. He's like, yo, do you know what's about to fucking happen? So, and then it says here, and Michael answered again and said to Raphael, who is he whose heart is not softened concerning it, and whose reins are not troubled by this word of judgment that has gone forth upon them because of those who have thus led them out? And it came to pass when he stood before the Lord of Spirits, Michael said thus to Raphael, I will not take part under the eye of the Lord, for the Lord of Spirits has been angry with them because they do as if they were the Lord. Therefore all that is hidden shall come upon them forever and ever. Neither or for neither angel nor man shall have this portion in it, but alone they have received their judgment forever and ever. So, they get word, right? If you're a military person, they get word that something might happen, something might occur, this, that, and the third, right? It's a little chilly outside. Hold on, sorry. Wanted to do this outside all the time because I like getting fresh air. So, it's one of those things where he's like, I'm not doing this. I'm staying out of this. Like, he's even telling Raphael, like, yo, I'm out. Peace. Adios. Olvídase. Like, how many ways you gotta say it? I ain't gonna do this, right? He's like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to be around here, etc. He's like, did they not know that this shit happened before? Like, come on. Right? Remember, this is the Old Testament. The New Testament came after, so even me saying before should be normal, at least deemed within classes that you take here in school. So, chapter 69, number 12. So, section 12, it's consuming me. And the fifth was named. So, he's going through in here and he's naming certain things, right? And he goes, after this judgment, they shall, and I'm going from the top here, after this judgment, they shall terrify and make them to tremble because they have shown this to those who dwell on the earth, and behold the names of those angels, right? And then it goes through and it says, and these are their names. In the first of them is, and it goes into these different names. Now, the reason why I wanted to point this out is because, as you noticed, as time went on, names changed, etc. So, is Michael's name Michael? Is Raphael's name? So where do these things come from, right? These names, where do they come from, right? Or does the name have a meaning, right? So on and so forth. Like a word, does a word have a meaning, right? And so, if I have to speak in a different language, because English is a Germanic language according to Google, but then you have this Anglo-Saxon English, and you have regular English, and then you have Netflix shows that show what happened to Saxons with King Arthur, and it's like, I want all sons, etc., blah, 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 like Mulan and all this other crap. And it gets really interesting, right? But you should watch King Arthur, right? Because the new King Arthur, the Legend of the Sword, right? The dude from Sons of Anarchy is in it, right? And he grows up in a certain manner. He's exposed to a lot of things. And, he gets to go through the whole movie. You get to see it, right? And he's like, yo, why'd you do this? And he's like, so-and-so did this, blah, 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 blah. And it was his uncle, this, that, and the third. And then they're going through and testing who could pull the sword from the stone, right? Just like, who is it? Gohan, right? Gohan pulled the sword, the Z sword from the stone, and all the Kais were like, oh my God. And I think at one point they had earrings, whatever, because the Kais wore earrings. And so they're like, how the hell did he do that? And then, of course, everybody, Goku, Vegeta, everybody's like, oh, I want to try this. I want to see if I can do it. And I remember there's one part in Legend of the Sword where he goes, everybody's looking at him and they're like enticing him. They're saying stuff. The dude from Never Back Down, I think, is in there. And he's like, oh, and he's in Lara Croft too. Yeah, he's in one of the Lara Croft movies, right? That was for Gerard Butler, by the way, if you were curious. If you were freaking curious. That was for Gerard Butler, right? Because I think he played Lara Croft's boyfriend. Yeah, or ex or something like that. It was so weird. But yeah, anyways, it's one of those things where I was just like, oh, okay, this is getting interesting. But, when I saw everything and I read, right, it's like my brain starts putting puzzle pieces together, right? My brain just does that, right? And I could see patterns, right? It's like, hey, every time something bad happens, the stock does this. And Kendrick Lamar says, how many stocks do you really have in stock? Like stockings? I don't know. But you're grateful and happy when you get something, right? Something's better than nothing, trust me. If you don't get that statement, then you never seen Hustle. Now let's get into 69, section 12, right? And so as he's going through and he's giving the names, right? Because they always took account, right? They always took account in a ledger, so on and so forth. And it's throughout the book, right? So there's a part where it gets really interesting later on. I think I have it written down But he's like, yo, at one point, and I said this, I think I was sitting in my car, I was like, it literally, he's going through and he's reading, and I showed the name, so on and so forth, etc. And he said that one of the lords, I forgot which one, the way they were titled in here, because there was a rank structure, right? Because you have God, and then you have the rank structure, like the seraphim and all that. So, he's like, he saw it, closed the book, and left, and got off his throne. And I was just like, damn, right? Because, it's just interesting. Now, it says here in, where's 12? And the fifth was named Kasdeja, Kasdeja. I think that's a colon, the two dots, colon, right? Because that's when you also break something up, like the two dots, and then you have like 69 and then 12. This is he who showed the children of men all the wicked smitings of spirits and demons, and the smitings of the embryo in the womb, that it may pass away, and the smitings of the soul that bites of the serpent, and the smitings, right, which befall through the noontide heat, the son of the serpent named Tabat, Tabaet. You guys could figure that one out. And this is the task of Kasbeel. So Kasbee or Beel, right? The chief of the oath, right? So if you're like a doctor, you took a Hippocratic oath, or you sworn in, or you went to law enforcement, whatever the case may be, right? You know what an oath is, not oats, right? You feed oats to a horse, I think. The oath which he showed to the holy ones when he dwelt high above in glory, and its name is Biqa, Biqa. And then it says, this angel requested Michael to show him the hidden name that he meant to enunciate enunciate, right? So ENUNCIATE in it, or it in the oath, so that those might quake before that name, right? So I want to know the person that you guys are scared of, so I can put that in the thing, so that when I say scare the shit out of you, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. Using fear, right? It's a deceptive practice, right? From some people to instill fear, but then again, why would you need to know the name? You're asking a lot of questions, right? So Quake before, like if you ever played the game Quake or Doom, you can figure it out, right? Quake before that name, and oath who reveal all that was in secret to the children of men. And this is the power of this oath, for it is powerful and strong. And he placed this oath, AKAE, in the hand of Michael. And these, right, are the secrets of this oath, and they are strong through this oath, right? And then it says, and the heaven was suspended before the world was created, and it keeps going on and on and on. So it was interesting because, like, let's say you had street names, so on and so forth, like, who's Bubba? You mean Forrest's boy? Yo, if you want to meet Forrest, you're going to have to talk to Dembe. If you want to talk to Dembe, you got to talk to Reddington. If you want to talk to Reddington, you got to go find a rifle. But if you ain't got no iron or ammunition, you ain't launching shit, homie. What would you do if you didn't have any steel? I mean, would you get rid of all the cars too and not put it to use, keep it in a junkyard as a reservist? Anyways, I digress. So let's go into 72, right? So it's like, I don't know if you guys have seen other past videos, right? Like there'll be people that'll be screaming in your face, this, that, and the third, and be going, and then they're like, what if, it's like the kid, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do that? I'm like, you know what? I'll be right back. Let me go find somebody that you may understand or respect or whatever. It's like, I remember I was trying to have a private conversation, so I used Spanish, right? And I was just trying to be more direct using the linguistics, right? Because you have linguistics, right? I think that's what you lick with. I mean, sorry. Linguistics is what you speak with your mouth, right? And so when you're, talking, your vocabulary, your vocation, whatever the case may be, vacation, make sure you communicate with words. Don't just assume. Now, this is important because what happens is, for instance, I mentioned the etymology, right? But then I say edamame. And then I said, what's interesting is that, if you say lamb, not ram, well, where does the lamb come from? Well, it comes from a vagina, or that place, that area. And if that picture looks like that, how do you know, right? How do you know what that looks like? Luminaries? Doctors? If you've seen the show The Resident on Netflix, he was a doctor or some shit like that. It was pretty interesting because, like, the dude in the first episode, he was a surgeon, and he looked like the dude from Seventh Heaven. It reminds me of Robert Newkirk. I don't know if you guys know that name, but what's it called? He was like, you guys saw that, right? Like, the patient did this and then that. He goes, no, you messed up and killed a patient, etc. That life was entrusted to you. And then he tries to get everybody to cover it up and all this other stuff, right? So it was really interesting because the way the show played out, it was fascinating because this guy was like, he was a dick and an asshole at the same time. And then you have the other doctor, the resident there, that was a former Marine, all this other stuff that came in. He went in as a doctor because he busted his ass to do so, etc. And, they didn't like the way he spoke. I guess he was a little more direct. Not sure. I mean, then again, people will say, where's your license or your piece of paper? Oh, you must not be that. Okay, so where's your money at? Where's your gold? Where's your silver? Where are your assets? Remember, I said there's a ledger like accounting, but how does the IRS know? You don't respect a dollar bill that you can use it to tip or to pay for something, but you were trying to follow the rules, not follow the rules, not care about anything. Because if I show you the back of one, you say you don't care about any of that, you get fixated. I know where your mindset is. But then if I turn it around and I show you the face of just one person who could look like you, does that matter? And you say no. Well, damn it, Gumby, grass is green too, and it's not greener on the other side, I promise. So if you don't care about one thing, I don't give a fuck anymore. Do you understand? Because I don't know if you remember The Rock with Sean Connery. They had him in jail, orange jumpsuit, zip tied. It was like they're playing Indian and Papoose. And so he sees Womack or Wozniak or something like that. And he's like, you. And he takes a quarter and he puts it underneath the chair and he smashes it. And he goes up to the glass and he carves a circle like this. And he breaks it, right? And he gets pissed when he sees this guy. He goes, I should have known it was you, right? And that anger also played over into the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, too, where Sean Connery was like hunting poachers and stuff like that. It was very interesting, And it was funny because one of the guys that was in there, he's like, how are you going to hit him from that far away? And he's like, we'll see if I can do it. Boom! And he goes, you hit that? It was so weird, right? Now, let's get into the astronomical book, right? Chapter 72, which literally in the first part mentions the luminaries, right? So if you're into astronomy, astrology, so on and so forth, etc. Now, mind you, people may tell you to be quiet, may do fear, but what happened to Galileo when he said something, right? Are we just repeating that crap all over again? Ladies and gentlemen, anybody? I mean, because if you remember what I stated earlier, where it talks about pretty much the birth of a child, it kind of reminds me of Lion King, right? And today's Martin Luther King, so you have ML, right? So we talked about Michael or Martin or whatever, honoring who and clarifying those, because people will watch movies and be like, oh, in Supernatural, he's bad, he's trying to end this. In that movie, he's doing this and blah, blah, blah. But what stories are you being told that you're trying to play out? What languages do you need to hear something in? And then you say, thank you, bye. And then you what? Use the person for whatever? So why'd you do that? How's your bank account so fat with a PH? Is that digital or is that paper? And can that digital stuff be, well, fictitious? Because you remember, what was it? Movie Entrapment. Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. All right? So they were in the movie, and she created this program that at a certain point, like Y2K, all the digital currency, because majority of the currency in the world is digital, right? Only a handful of it, right? Give or take 80-20 principle, 20% is tangible assets, you know, whether that's paintings, paper, don't say fucking people, because that begins with a P. And I don't know, but if you say the word people, you can spell the word Pope, right? Who's supposed to look after the people, right? That believe in L. So we have Martin Luther King, right? Now, Lion King is interesting because in Lion King, they hand up a cub, right? And they hold it up into the air and they show everybody, right? It's the new birth into the kingdom, the addition to the family, so on and so forth, etc., right? But does anybody actually go into stuff, right? Because some people will go into the lore and say, oh, well, the person he got with looks like Scar's daughter, this, that, and the third, and this, and so Simba, and you know, he married pretty much his cousin or whatever. It was very interesting, right? The logic there, right? Because if I go from here to, let's say, Ukraine, right, and I get with a Ukrainian girl, but then that baby is born, right? Is that my cousin? Because, I mean, we did send supplies to Ukraine, but they're not a part of NATO. Or Tano, whatever, however you spell it. Tan, O. No? Because, I mean, tangents are different. T-A-N in mathematics geometry. The O is what? Is that a halo? Is that a blood type? Can you specify what the acronym is? I don't know. What's NATO stand for? Now, the book, the astronomical book, the book of the courses of the luminaries of heaven, the relations of each according to their classes, dominion, and their seasons according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which Uriel, the holy angel, now we're introducing another angel outside of the others, right? Who was with me? Now, I know in Netflix, Lucifer has a daughter, right? She comes from the future to help him and all this other stuff. It's crazy. But, you know, I once had a little girl wish that I was her dad, and I just looked at the mom and said, don't say anything. You know, if she ever needs me, call me, especially if there's a hurricane. You can't get upset with that. So, because a hurricane's a storm, right? And so, you know, when I'm going through this, you know, the luminaries, I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to understand, oh, they're enlightened, they're intelligent, they're knowledgeable, they're wisdom, right? But then I start listening, right? Because the luminaries, how many lumes are in your light bulb, right? That's how Nikola Tesla got screwed over, right? Nikola Tesla got screwed over because of an advanced light bulb, whatever, right? But you have lumes, right? It brightens the mind, brightens the eyes, light up the eyes, etc., as they say. And so, you know, is it blue or cerulean or turquoise or teal, etc.? How do you know? Did you hand make it yourself? That's why the devil wears Prada and got that crazy? I don't know, but 101 Dalmatians is pretty interesting as well, right? So now let's talk about this, right? Because you have to have tactics, right? So people would say curiosity led the cats, right? So on and so forth. Curiosity killed the cat. But a cat spelled a different way. It's tack, right? Tack, ticks, tick, tock, tack, politics, you want to talk about it, brag about it, be about it, show about it, record about it, let me help you. Take a picture. Let me see if you trust me. Right? And then if you look at other stuff, right? You got like Rocky Balboa. His story's fascinating, right? Because he sold his dog, right? But he didn't get that much money for the dog, right? He was broke. He was living on the street. And then all of a sudden, he became a wealthy and well-known individual for Rocky 1, right? The first one that came out. He made his money back. And you know what he did? He went to go, there's a very person that he sold the dog to for pennies or not even scraps, because that would be like, how do I say this? It's ridiculous how he did something with scraps, made something incredible, and the thing that he sold just to get him through, right? It's like that show, Marco Polo, right? He goes into Genghis Khan's military or army or whatever on Netflix. You can see it in there. I think one of the actors in there was from Legend of the Sword. You could see him in there. And then, of course, like, you know, he bought him back, but because people knew he was valuable all of a sudden, they wanted more money, like ransom. You know what I'm saying? So imagine if somebody stole your kid, right? Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. Kids are also called children, right? So if you spell night and night, one has a K, the other one has just an N to tell you what time of day it is. That's one. And then, of course, you have AM and PM, right? And then, of course, what does that mean? Prime meridian, etc. You know, after meridian, I don't know. So what do you and do you not understand? Because last time I checked, and I checked well, trust me, I will go to a library. I will make the drive. You don't have to put me in front of somebody like Mike Ross in the TV show Suits and like, you want me to believe that this person used to drive 2 hours to the library or wherever the fuck he said in the TV show. It's crazy because I'm pretty sure you could track GPS and check the cameras and everything else. Weird. So let's get into this. I want to pause right there. And don't say scattered, because I had one person say, I don't want to hear how you piece this all together. Well, then, if you don't like magic, then don't go to the fucking show. It tells me you're impatient. If you're going to tell me the ending of a movie that you've never seen before, don't go to the show. Don't go to the movie. You already know what's going to happen, right? If you're going to sit there on your screen, your television, your phone, play a video game, just twiddling your fucking thumbs, and you know what's going to happen, then why are you doing it? So let's get into this one. All right, so chapter 73. After this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, right, which is named the moon. Now, you could say the moon is called Luna, right, because that's what the moon is called, right? However, I had a friend named Luna once. It's an interesting thing, right? And it actually says it here in the astronomical book. Now, before I call out the other books, there was a TV show called Sandman, right? And we're going to get into the names because obviously you have the Book of Dreams as well. And in there, I think he met Dreams, or the Sandman was the Lord of Dreams. Kind of looked like somebody. But, so it says it right here. 73, etc., yada, yada. Now, if you wanted to pause that and take a look at it, by all means, go ahead. I'm going to do a mic check real quick to make sure the battery didn't die. All right. We're still good. Good thing they're rechargeable. I heard they die quick. So let's continue. Where is it? That was from my mother, by the way, when she was speaking to me. She was like, oh, yeah. I said, I could just buy you the rechargeable ones. That way you don't have to waste, etc. I don't know. So it says here, and after this law, I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon, right? and her circumference is like the circumference of heaven, right? And her chariot in which she rides is driven by the wind, and light is given to her in definite measure. And it has definite in parentheses because timing is everything. And her rising and setting change every month, right? So what is this actually talking about? It's talking about a daughter, right? It's talking about a daughter. Why? Because it says, I saw this law, and it said another law, right? Or a female, whatever you want to call yourself, right? You call yourself whatever animal you want, right? But you have masculine and feminine energy. So fucking choose if you're masculine or feminine, or if you're a balanced individual, then say that, right? If you like men, say you like men. If you like women, say you like women. But if you like hanging out and talking with men because we can talk like women when we're together and alone, because some of the things that we say alone might hurt some people's ears. And then it starts conflict all over again. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? But if your energy, how do you say this? Your psychology says you're a lesbian, but you hang with the men, kind of like Marines or military personnel. Would you say that they're more masculine, or would you say that they're more feminine? Think about it. Fucking think about it, please. Would you say that the people in the military are more masculine or feminine? And if you're discarding some, why? Unless you're fucking playing scientist. And if I have to see a number again, I'm going to lose my mind with the amount of people that are trying to mess with something and play with words that they don't know. I may have not gotten deployed outside to the world, to the war, whatever war is there, right? But let me tell you something right now. I know some people that would get really pissed off if this shit comes out. And I don't care how many times I have to repost it, post it, so on and so forth, etc. We can either rectify certain things, because there's things in North Carolina that they specialize in, which is in your rectum, like colorectal cancer. And nobody wants to fucking figure that shit out. And then when somebody signs off who took continuing education, oh wait, that's called CE. Wait, that's AD. No, that's BC. That's a moment in time or a measurement. Like a centimeter, millimeter, inches, etc. Trust me, there's always somebody that has a bigger one and one that can shoot further. That's why you always have to have a fail-safe. So if you remember the movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, and my personality can sometimes, go off like in the movie, right? And there was one cat, Mexican cat, Spanish dude. Remember Diablo? He said, "Do you trust me with your life?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you sure about that?" And he placed a round in the chamber. I'm not going to tell you what it looked like. He placed a round in the chamber, and he pulled the trigger. Nothing went off because there was no ammunition. Now you ask me, how did he get that bullet all the way there? What kind of bullet it was? How did that happen? And then, of course, magicians like to do the bullet catch. Don't fucking do that, because you've seen what Manchurian candidates do. Ask Charlie Kirk about it. So let's put some things together. Was the primer already struck? Was there a pin there? Because a pin goes on a grenade, and Bruno Mars says, "I'll jump on a grenade for you." But if you're out, if you don't like somebody, but they like you, and somebody else might like them, that's one of your boys that say, "Yeah, I'll hop on this grenade for you. I'll take one for the team," etc. Blah, blah, blah. Right? But in war, they say something else, right? And they actually blow up, right? Because you pull a pin out of a grenade, you pull a pin out of a rifle, you pull a pin out of a firing pin out of a gun, right? To clean the carbon and all that other shit and residue that leaves behind, like the soot on your engine. So the reason I know that this is a female is because of the way it's describing her period, right? Her menstrual cycle, right? Now, if you have ever upset a woman and she starts going off on you the way, like, some people don't like the way I'm going off right now, like, I don't even want to hear her mouth on herself. Just know, right? If you're balanced, right, and you understand stuff and they're emotional, right, and they get triggered, listen to understand what they are saying. You don't always have to use words, right? If I look somewhere when a sound goes off and someone looks at me, I already know. So don't tell me something. I can sense something's about to happen. Call it a weird thing when I see children walking around and then a knife fight breaks out. Huh. So let's move to 74 real quick. Chapter 74. And I saw another course, a law for her, and how according to that law she performs her monthly revolution. So if they're studying this, right, and then it says here, and all these, Uriel, right, the holy angel who is the leader of them all. And it's funny because I think Uriel was a female in the TV show Lucifer. Weird. But let's continue. So, let's see here. Showed me blah, 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 and I wrote down all their positions. So it's like the moon waning, crescing, waxing, etc., so on and so forth. And then it said over here that all the mountains would be stuck in wax. Stuck in wax. So if a waxing moon is part of the woman's menstrual cycle and a baby comes out of that, allegedly, not sure, I mean, granted, in Avengers, he said the best thing that came out of you came out of a bottle, whatever the case may be, right? So, I mean, think about it. I mean, if that's happening, but then, they find balance, right? Just as the tide rises, it also falls. And if women react the same way, you're going to have good times, you're going to have low times, you're going to have high times, you're going to have low times. The tide and the earth work the same way. The motion of the ocean. Heard it's how you use it. So if you're teaching somebody something and you go, she can handle this, I say they both add up to 9. And if you flip it, it spells 66, dummy. Should read more. And before you get so upset and use tactics that you should not, I'm hoping to whatever is watching above us, I don't get my spidey sense to kick in. Because at this point, I don't give a fuck. Stop trying to test things. I was joking around yesterday and I used the N-word in the car. Oh my God, the N-word. But I made a specification, right? Very specific, as the law is a specific endeavor. I said if you use the A, you I. If you use the ER, you end up in the ER. You see how that small distinction, that small enunciation, that small pronunciation, etc., can twist how someone interprets something if they understand what's being said. If they don't, then their BPMs rise, unless their BPMs are rising because the people that are with them are either giving them positive or negative reinforcement based upon what's being said in the car. How many people look around when mommy and daddy yell at the children? Right? Or who looks at what first? Is daddy raising his voice and doing something that the kid understands? Or is mommy raising the voice, etc.? Right? What exactly is someone saying, right? Because then they say, oh, do I have to raise my hand? Or I'm going to count to this number. And then I say 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, right? Isn't that how you work out when you do calisthenics? I'm gonna count to three. I'm gonna count to four. You know, in some lore, apparently it was, well, illegal to go past 2 miles or a mile or something like that. What happens if you do three? What does that mean? Do you know what that means? Do you know what three means? Four. It means four. What comes after three? Four. This is what you asked for. Yes or yes? Right? Or one Mississippi, two Mississippi, three Mississippi. Why do you have that pause, that gap, so on and so forth? Is it a time delay? Why do you mark it? Is it a time delay? '75, right? Yeah, chapter 75, 6. Where was it? Let me grab my stylus here. See, I got the little thing in case I want to use my phone. And before somebody says stop, I'm not trying to be a smartass, but sometimes, because I do have a lazy eye and astigmatism, I don't know if you've spoken to an optometrist, but my vision is somewhat decent. But since I stay up late, I also have a lazy eye because I work a lot. Okay. The angel Uriel showed me, whom the Lord of glory hath set forth, or no, has set forever over all the luminaries of the heaven, in the heaven, and in the world. Now, before you get confused and you say stop because you got stuck on heaven and heaven, figure it out, play it back, rewind, so on and so forth. Now, moving forward, it says, i.e., the sun, moon, stars, and all the ministering creatures which make their revolution in all the chariots of heaven. So why is this book called the Book of Astrological Knowledge? Astronomy. The gates of heaven, seasons, is broken up, allegedly, that way. But how do they know the other ones? With a scope? Is that how you see better? With a scope? Remember what I stated earlier? Scope? Or do you use like a iron sight, or like if you were lining up a shot, right? You would like use two in the front or two in the back, one in the front, and you're like, yep, nope, that one right there, right? Or if you're taking a picture, you would use four fingers, like, yep, nope, you got to frame it, right? Because you have to control people's focus and frames, right? When you walk up to somebody, you don't say, hey, friend, how's it going? You need to actually know who they are. All right, so it says here, chapter 75, 6, the spirit of the dew, Mountain Dew, that's funny. All right, the spirit of the dew, when they are open, standing open in the heaven and at the end, right? So there's an opening and then there's an end, right? Positive and a negative, right? Let's see. As for the 12 portals in the heaven at the ends of earth, out of which go forth the moon, so on and so forth. So the gates, right? They're talking about gates, this, that, and the third. I wanted to start a company and name it GEM, because everybody has a birthstone. And if you don't think people are valuable, or if you don't think that their ideas are valuable, or that they are in business, but they're running into trouble, and some people will run into like an NDA, a gag order, whatever the case may be. No pun intended if you watch the P Word, so on and so forth. But at this point, I really don't care. So, because the clue's in the health title, health care or heal them, etc. I guess they put care there because they got confused and they don't know if it's spelled with a K or a C, so they wanted to F around and find out. But yeah, everybody's valuable. They all have their own idea, right? So when they also talk about the stairway and stuff like that, right? It's like YOLO, right? What is you only live once and all this, right? The chariot, the ram, if you look at the picture, and I've seen other books which I've shown you, but the books confirmed in picture form what I saw in words. You know, it's funny. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Elizabeth Swan, I think, right? She says, "Oh, I want a parlay." Blah blah blah. You want a what? A parlay, right? And then somebody comes out and goes, I think she struck an accord, right? But what are the fucking accords for? I'm only asking because I'm going to go further. All right? Because what happened was when she did that, she forgot that she wasn't one. And then there was another one where they had to make somebody a queen. And after all her experiences, you know, somebody's like, oh, well, we got to vote who's going to be the leader. And they go around, so on and so forth. And at this time, she got accepted, right, by everybody. I don't know how, but she got accepted by everybody. And so they're like, well, nobody's ever voted for somebody to represent everybody. And they were like, this one, that one, this one, that one, this one, this one. And everybody votes for themselves. Like, yo, go take care of yourself, blah, blah, blah. Hey, let me help you. No, I don't need help, blah, blah, blah. I can do it by myself. So what are you complaining for? Why cry out? Why ask and seek help? Ask for something to stop and tell somebody to stop, but then withhold information. But then you lift restraints on Disney. You see what's possible in the agriculture section, right? And so you get to see other stuff. Why isn't this happening here? Why isn't this happening here? Why isn't this happening here? Etc. And then even I saw this guy. He was another veteran. He had a vet gang hat on. And this guy was walking out of this, like, not O'Reilly or O'Reilly, but this auto parts store, and he had a missing leg. And he just starts crying. He just starts bawling. And he goes, you know, it's crazy. He goes, people always fought for, like, eternal life, etc. He goes, if you look at a starfish and a worm, so on and so forth, you know that it could heal to a certain point? Are you sure? How do you know? Did you dissect one? Did you cut a part of it off and then it just figure out how the hell it survives? And so with that information, that knowledge, if you could create CRISPR technology, and crisps could be French fries, all right? Or chips, fish and chips, all right? Or crisps could be potato chips, depending, right? You have to look at, oh, well, the Impossible Burger. And of course you have that, but then you see like, oh, I'm impossible has I'm possible, etc., right? Kim Possible, etc. And so, you know, everybody got selfish until one person did the right thing, right? At a certain point, right? I had one person yell at me and they were like, yo, you shouldn't make promises you can't keep. You shouldn't tell this, and this. And I said, I have to wait, etc. Because there's certain things like the magic will be gone if I show them how the trick's done. And so I waited. And then I sent my cousin, you know, how to do card tricks and mentalism and all that. And, you know, that was something that he had to learn later on because, you know, at one point he was like, yo, Michael, we're brothers, right? Because your birthday's in September, mine's in September, so that makes us brothers. And I was like, yeah. Makes us family. I know that for a fact. How do I know? Because he's my cousin. I grew up with him. That's what I call him. So I spent my time with, energy with, gave attention to. Now, if you know what the tea is, then please spill it. Right? Now, let's get into the Book of Dreams, right? So I'm going to pause here because we're an hour in, so there probably is going to be a second part, but this is the first half. The Book of Dreams, right here. Now, in the Book of Dreams, if you remember, Sandman was in charge of dreams. He was the Lord of Dreams or something like that. He also spoke to the Lucifer, etc. And at one point, I think in there, he gave the keys back to the owner. Like, here you go. And even the blonde chick, she was from Lord of the Rings, not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, right? She's like, good for you. While she's chilling on a beach somewhere, right? So it's just fascinating. But let's wrap this up because I want to tune something real quick, and I have to, it's chilly. I got to edit this, and tuning is like editing, etc. Right? You tune your car to edit its performance. So take that reference as a grain of salt. 89. So chapter 89, and then it says here, what's the first one that I have? 89, 16, 18, and I'm going to end with this, right? So 16 to 18. Book of Dreams. Now, remind you, Adrian Lester, who's played Mickey Bricks, was in there. So, wake up. Right? And it says here, and the wolves began, where is it? Yeah, 16 to 18. And the wolves began to fear them, and they oppressed them, right? And they oppressed them until they destroyed. They oppressed them until they destroyed. There's nothing there. Cry out on the account, right? So it's weird. Cry out on account of their little ones, and to complain unto their Lord, and a sheep which had been saved from the wolves fled and escaped to the wild asses. And I saw the sheep how they lamented and cried and besought their Lord with all their might, until that Lord of sheep descended as the voice of the sheep from a lofty abode. And then it says here, and came to them and pastured them. And he called that sheep which had escaped the wolves, and spake, past tense, right? S-P-A-K-E, with it concerning the wolves, that it should admonish them not to touch the sheep. So it's interesting. So they're talking like negotiations, so on and so forth. And then it goes here, and this is a little bit further. Yeah, 19. I saw the wolves and how they oppressed the sheep exceedingly with all their power. And the sheep cried aloud. And the Lord came to the sheep, and they began to smite those wolves. And the wolves began to make lamentations. Now, if you don't know what lamentations is, you can go and, look it up. I will get into that in probably part 2, but I'll make a note here just for you. But the sheep became quiet, and forthwith ceased to cry out. Right? And then it says, and I saw the sheep till they departed from amongst the wolves, but the eyes of the wolves were blinded, and those wolves departed in pursuit of the sheep with all their power. And the Lord of the sheep went with him, or went with them, sorry. This is why I use a stylus sometimes, because I have to, you're put like a card or something. Yeah. What time is it? Let's see here. Here it is. So it says here, that sea. Okay, where is it? I lost my spot. See, this is what happens. All right, let's get back into it. So the wolves, they got blinded, right? So think of the court of law, right? The blind faith, etc. The blind lady with the blindfold, and then a sword in one hand, scales in the other. But the wolves began to pursue those sheep till they had reached the seawater. Seawater, the beach, the ocean, right? And that sea was divided, and the water stood on this side, on that before their face, and their Lord led them, and placed himself between them and the wolves. And as those wolves did not yet see the sheep, they proceeded into the midst of that sea, and the wolves followed the sheep. And those wolves ran after them into that sea. And when they saw the Lord of the sheep, they turned to flee before his face. But that sea gathered itself together and became as it had been created. And the water swelled and rose till it covered those wolves. And I saw till the wolves who pursued those sheep perished and were drowned. But the sheep escaped from that. Right? And then down here it says, I saw a vision till the sheep became man, built a house. So huff and puff and blow your house down, and then you go to the other number 3, right? Because you have the one of straw, the other one that was flimsy, and then the other one that was made out of like brick or whatever. So I'm a huff and puff and blah blah blah, and it didn't happen. And of course, somebody was probably like, well, what if I did? And that was probably a bad idea. And then it says their leader, blah, 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 withdrew from them and fell asleep. And all the sheep saw it and cried over it with great crying. So he fell asleep. The person that got put in charge of the sleep, the people that got put in charge of the sheep fell asleep, hence the term woke, etc. It's one of those things. Are you woke, etc.? It's people don't get it, until you say something that grasps their attention, right? So if you're having a conversation and people want to stay in English, right? Because they get offended if you utilize, let's say, Spanish, right? Because if you say, oh, why do you speak in Spanish when you don't want nobody to know what you're saying, right? Or, okay, so I'll use your language. Yo, homie, what's up? Can you say that word? Can they say that word? No? Okay, so now that we're having our own conversation, right? So think about it. So I want to stop there because it goes down into a couple other things, right? Because it talks about dogs, foxes, boars, etc. began to devour the sheep till the Lord of sheep raised up another sheep, a ram from their midst, which led them, and that ram began to butt on either side those dogs, foxes, and wild boars till he had destroyed them all. And then it keeps going. So I'm going to stop right there, and then I'll get into 47 in part 2. So chapter 89, section 47, it talks about oppressed the sheep. So that was that. And I hope you enjoyed part 1 of, the last lesson in class. And I mean, if you go to everything, right, people always wonder, oh, in divorce, I got to give her half. I got to do this. I got to do that, blah, 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 blah. Well, do you imagine if the earth complained as much as you did? Oh, I got to give them the sun. I got to give them the moon. They want the stars. They don't have enough light. They can't see, etc., right? And, you have a flag that has stars. It has 50 stars, right? You got 50-50, 50 cent, etc., half, never split the difference, etc., because if you don't care about $1, you're going to stay single, right? Or unless you are already a whole person, and when you come together, right, because 50 plus 50, right, 5 and 5, or 50 cents makes $1. So do you understand why $1 matters now? If you don't, does paper come from trees or cotton, or what's it made out of? And if currency is digital, well, what's it made out of? Where are the chips from? What are the materials, the ores, etc.? And that would be the metals. So, till part 2, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on the next area of, let's see, I would say area, but yeah, let's say section, area, etc. of lesson 50. Now, I see that this is a little sore or whatever, and a little swelled up right now. I don't know, I might be going to the dentist soon. I've been getting pain in my tooth. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.